Hey, Boss Fight crew. We're going to give everybody for the surprise stream just a second to get in here, but we have a very special Boss Fight live today. So we are in the Boss Fight offices, and we have Mitchel Wu with us, who is one of our favorite toy photographers. You guys have probably seen us post a lot of his images using Boss Fight products, but we always talk about the toy process of creation. We thought it would be fun to talk about what happens after you get your toys, when you get to play with them. And Mitchel Wu is the ultimate toy player.
Yeah,
is that a term
absolutely.
I can use?
You just created it, so it's cool.
I'm okay with it. So anyway, we thought we would walk through a bunch of his images, not even all of the images he's taken with our toys, and talk through kind of how he sets things up, what he looks for, all of that fun stuff. Give you guys some tips for as you are posing your toys at home and get some good photos.
Yes.
So thank you for being here, first of all.
I love it. I love the office. Thanks for the tour.
Yeah.
This is where so many cool things happen.
It is. It's a really fun office. And I don't know if our conference room has been seen on Boss Fight Lives before, but that's where we're sitting.
Because you usually do it from your office or
home even. Yeah, right, depending on the hour.
Right.
So yes, and we see John here. He says, Boss Fight figures are ideal for photography. So
they are. They totally are. I mean, the articulation that you get in a lot of them is incredible. And if you look at some of the skeleton shots I've done, I think, especially the last one where it's kind of the Zen pose over water, the skeleton, I think that's a good test of articulation. I really get a feel for what a toy can do when I try to put them in that pose.
It is really neat. Yes. And we'll show you guys that in a moment. Yeah. But before we jump into some of the images, just talk about your journey, because you became a toy photographer how long ago?
I started in late 2015, so almost 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prior to that, I was a wedding photographer. I was doing that for 6 years. General photography for a few years before that, and then a whole other career. This is like my second half of my career. The first half was product design and product development. Worked for Disney for 6 years, doing exactly that. Spent a lot of time in Asia, which you will do soon.
Yeah.
My background is in illustration, so I've always been trying to do something creative with what I do, whatever it is. And I found that toy photography is the ultimate for me as far as creativity. I don't see myself getting tired with toy photography. One of the things I've always considered myself was a restless creative. The reason I left Disney after 6 years is because I really got tired of working with the same properties.
Yeah.
And so that's been a common theme with the first half of my career. I would jump around a lot because I would get bored. I don't see myself getting bored with toy photography just because there's so many amazing toys to work with just with Boss Fight alone. It's incredible.
You're not bored of our products yet?
No, how can you be when you have such a range of product? It's amazing. So
it is really fun.
Yeah, it is super fun.
Well, let's jump into some photos. We'll talk them through, and then you guys can ask questions. Oh, we've already got people excited. You're a great inspiration.
Thank you. Yeah. If you've photographed toys, if you've ever tried it, if you haven't tried it, you should, because it's really fun. But, if you've been on my Instagram or anywhere else, I really am an open book. I'm happy to share anything that I know technique-wise. So if you have any questions, and if I can answer them, I will, for sure.
Yeah. So whether you're watching Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter/X, we stream across all three. You can type in your questions, and we'll get to them as we can. But let's just jump in and look. So this first one, it's kind of a collage that I'm showing. I love this because this was a magazine that came to you about toy photography, right?
Yes. This is this is the third, I think, issue that I've done with them. And they've always given me the cover, which is super cool.
It's really neat.
And then the inside article as well. So it's a great opportunity for me. And they really they don't really put a whole lot of demands on. It's the number one parenting/family magazine in the UK. So it's a perfect place to showcase toys. And they've done their first article was to try and inspire little kids to get into toy photography. So it's tips and things like that. So they've been a really cool partner to work with.
So when you're working with an article like this, right, you can kind of see all the images, and they're all Boss Fight, which was really fun.
Yeah, I definitely want to do an all Boss Fight themed cover and article for sure.
Yeah. What's your number one tip that you give out when you're in a general location like this, kind of somebody who has never even thought of toy photography before?
If they want to be like one of the tips for toy photography, I would say is like, don't get too hung up on technique and the special effects, like the explosions and whether it's digital or practical. I think the main thing that I always like to push is the story behind it. So for me, it's like if you see a lot of toy photographers and anything goes, and more power to them, but you don't see much story. You see a lot of explosions, you see a lot of different effects, digital, but you don't really see a story. So I think what makes an image really memorable and impactful is the story first, and then everything else comes to back that up and support it. And I feel the same way about movies too. I always talk about movies as a good example. Like a lot of the summer blockbusters, I'll go in all excited and you'll see all these amazing explosions, fights, and effects. A week later, you don't even remember what you saw because there's not a compelling story to it. Yeah. So if you can get the story behind that or anything that you do, I think that really improves the image or whatever media it is you're working with.
Well, and I think you do that so well in your photos. Obviously, we love working with you.
Thank you.
Let's jump in and look at a few other ones. So this was obviously the cover of the magazine that we just saw, but Popeye is how you came to us.
Yes, when I was a kid, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I'm a lot older than most toy photographers, but one of my favorite cartoons was Popeye. I mean, it was probably my favorite cartoon. I'd seen some other companies do Popeye, and although they're amazing, it wasn't like in the style that I remembered as a kid. So when I saw there was like I don't know, there was a PR thing or something like this is coming out soon. It's from Boss Fight. Was never familiar with Boss Fight. But Popeye caught my eye immediately, and we both knew somebody in common. Yeah. And I got her to introduce me to you. It was fantastic.
Right? And I think at that point, our first conversation, we said, we don't have the Popeye figures yet. They're like kind of in production, but let's
Actually, it was a ways away. So.
Yeah, it was a ways away.
So yeah, we started with a bunch of other stuff. I think with Little Prince, maybe.
Little Prince might have been the first one. And I definitely have that in here somewhere later. But I mean, talk about telling a story, right? With this image, you've got the action sequence, right? The ketchup looks like it's launching. Like you can kind of see that. So how do you set up something like this that's so complicated?
This was a tough one. I mean, usually when you get several characters like that, and then you see the pose that Bluto's in, and then I had the ketchup flying out, it's not real ketchup. I sculpted it, and then I painted it to look like ketchup.
Okay.
Yeah, but it looks pretty good. But it all starts for me. It starts with cartoon. So obviously Popeye is such a well-known property in cartoon. The characters are really well-known. So everybody knows them. So I always try to stay true to I try to stay true to the character that I'm portraying if they're super well-known like that. Some of your properties don't have a whole lot of stories behind them. So there's a little more leeway I have in what I can imagine, but definitely we all know that Wimpy loves his hamburger. So I wanted to set the scene up around that.
Which you definitely did. Yeah. And on your Instagram, you have a behind the scenes on how you set this up, right?
Yeah. And if you haven't seen it, I think it's pretty interesting. It was an interesting journey for me to go from concept to the finished image. Yeah. There's a lot of trial and error. There may have been a few F-bombs because usually like when I'm setting up, the characters in precarious positions, they tend to fall over. You have to almost start over. So
did you use like supports on this and things that you had to Photoshop out?
Exactly. I mean, a lot of the characters, like Bluto's definitely on a wire. He's definitely, because he's got one foot on the ketchup container. And then trying to remember what else I have. I have some splatters of ketchup going towards the bun, and those are on wires. But all the wires are taken out in post for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so neat.
Yeah.
Well, since you love Popeye so much, I thought we'd show you've done several Popeye images, but this one with the sea hag, I really love it. So talk about this setup, because again, you've got the water splashing. How do you create these effects?
So this is all, like, most of my water shots are done on my stone patio in my backyard. And I always call it like magic, because as soon as I pour like just a fraction of an inch of water on it, it can become anything I want it to. Like it could become the ocean, or it could become a lake, or it could become a stream. Just depends on how you toss the water around and how you build out the set around it. But basically for this one, I had like a little container, and I was just standing off camera, and it was filled with water, and I would just splash it into the scene. And I have a remote control for one hand for my camera, and so I'm kind of triggering at the same time. And those are all practical effects, so very little manipulation. I may have combined two. Well, I definitely, because you see a splash on one side of the boat and a splash on the other. So those are two different shots that were combined into one later on in post.
So you're a magic manipulator in the post production.
I try to be, and then the birds that you see above were like on wires.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, Jeep. I love Jeep. I think it's my favorite accessory that's come with any of the toys. Let's see. And John says that when he shoots, he has a half a desk with a black drop cloth and handheld or mounted pen lights.
Nice. I mean, it's amazing like what you can do with in a variety of ways. Sometimes I'll use, like from IKEA, I have like a fluorescent LED, well, it's an LED light, and it works great, you know, and you can change the brightness on it. You can change the temperature. It's not meant for photos, but it does what many photo lights do. So flashlights, I use a flashlight on which I can't remember which image I did. I was for one of yours. But it was just a regular flashlight, but I needed pinpoint, and they call them a snoot, but usually you buy it for it. But I made one out of black tinfoil, and it went this long, and I could pinpoint like little dots of light into the scene. So it was really cool.
So you use a lot of household objects.
You can. I do sometimes, and absolutely anybody that's starting out can use almost anything.
Yeah. That's really neat. Yeah. Well, let's look at some other images. The Court of the Dead. I mean, I thought this was a great one to bring up first because we're entering the spooky season, which is so fun.
That's right.
And talk about the skeletons. I think those are all boss fight skeletons around
here. They are. This one was just a lot of like cool lighting. Like I have these little cube lights, and I put green gels on them. And then it takes a while to set up the lights just to get the way you want it. And then after I got it set up, I sprayed some atmosphere aerosol into the background, which gives you the fog back there.
That is so neat.
That was fun.
I think we got some of the other ones. Oh, here's the one you were mentioning, the crazy pose skeleton. This is your most recent skeleton photo.
So if you can hit a pose like this with any action figure, you've got pretty good articulation. Because especially the legs, that's a crazy position to get them in. You know? Yeah. So a lot of toys won't do that.
The skeleton blanks are fun.
Yeah, they're so cool. So cool. But yeah, I mean, again, colored lighting, and I think I also used a little bit of atmosphere aerosol in the back of this. And I know most toy photographers, when I first started, atmosphere aerosol was originally developed by two husband and wife wedding photographer.
Really?
And they used it primarily for like wedding photography or maybe some sports portrait photography. And somehow, I wasn't the one, but somebody started using it for toy photography, and it just exploded within the community. So like almost everybody who's a toy photographer has a can of this lying around.
That's so neat. And is it like super stylized, or can you get it on like Amazon or whatever?
I think you can get it on Amazon, but but most of their distribution comes from individual photography shops, like photo shops and supplies. Yeah.
That's neat. I know we get lots of questions about how these images are made. This one blew up last year. You did this one in the lead up to Halloween last year, right?
I did like a 7-day like personal challenge to create an image a day for up to Halloween using all your skeletons. And I don't remember how I thought about this, but obviously calcium builds strong bones.
It does.
Yes. So that was obviously the story. I just shot it in my kitchen, set up some lights above it, and yeah, I like that image.
I like that.
And I gave Kirkland some free advertising. I haven't heard back from them yet.
No, not yet. We all love Costco. It's a great place. Let's see what else. Oh, The Little Prince. So this was, I think, the first image you actually took.
I think this was the first image I did for you guys. And you know, I bought the book and I looked at all the reference that was online, and there's a scene just like this, and so I thought it was really magical. You know,
it is magical
scene, and I bought some tiny little plastic doves, and yeah, that's the shot.
If it was a little bit later, you could have used some of the little plastic doves that come with one of the Phantom figures.
You're right. I know. Bad timing.
We just didn't think that through.
Yes. Yeah, and again, most of the stuff, if anybody's curious, is on my Instagram, and there's usually like I post behind the scenes. I know there's a behind the scenes on this one as well.
Yeah. And it's at Mitchel Wu Photography on Instagram, right? Yeah. So if you don't follow him, go follow him. It's super fun. And you've taken the Little Prince around the world with you as you've traveled.
I brought him to Alaska when we went on a cruise. I brought him I know I brought him to Alaska, and I think I brought him somewhere else. I can't remember. But yeah, I take it when I do that. I'll usually bring one toy. Prior to this, when I went to Alaska before this, I brought ET because I thought he's cool to travel around with. He's simple. He stands up easily. I don't have to have wires to stand him up. And the same could be said for the Little Prince. But I remember taking him to this really cool little park in like this island in Alaska, and I got some really fun shots from there.
Well, Andrew is also watching, and he says, "Tiny Little Plastic Doves" is my favorite Prince song.
And it's a Prince.
So much fun. We have a lot of fun, guys. This, I think, I love this image. So this is the juicer, which just came in stock from Fraggle Rock. You had a lot of fun creating this one.
Yeah, and again, this one, there's a nice behind the scenes on it, but I created the cave. And it's cool when you see it more expansive because you can see more cave, but I just did it with brown, I don't know, it's construction paper or what. You just crumple it up, or wrapping paper, you just crumple it up, and it looks amazing when you like stone. So yeah, and then I built the ladder out of little acrylic poles. Yeah.
I love this image so much. And how did you get his little plans to are those on a wire as well?
I stick it on a wire, and then like when I first started, I did one image where Buzz Lightyear was flying above a table and all these paper clips and stuff were flying. And what I did was I put each one on a paper clip and I glued it or taped it to my table. And then later I took out, but I learned later, like for this is a good example, or even the doves from the Little Prince, is I'll put one dove on a wire and I'll just move them around and take pictures.
And then it's all post-production.
And then you still take out the wires.
Yeah. Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely does. Let's see. Oh, we're getting into the minifigures. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of these coming up.
Yeah.
And what's the challenge when you're working with a minifigure that doesn't have as much articulation?
Or doesn't have any articulation?
Yeah. Is it simply just finding the right way to set them up?
It is. And also what kind of story you still want to tell with the environment, what the circumstances are. The cool thing about these and other minifigures is that they're usually like in really cool poses. They're set up for you already. So you don't have to worry about posing them because you can't. They're almost like iconic poses.
Yeah.
So you take them and then your responsibility comes in on the story and the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. We've got the Phantom and Diana here. So this one was a really neat kind of almost film noir kind of shot that you did.
This was really fun. I mean, so sometimes simple for me is better. One route could have been to go out and find a diorama of an alleyway with really cool buildings. For me, I just looked around some might call it laziness. I call it
resourcefulness.
Resourcefulness. But I had a bunch of like pieces of like scraps of foam sheet laying around.
Yeah.
And they were gray. And so I just set them up kind of quickly, actually, to resemble kind of like, you definitely know it's an alley. And then I just worked with the lights, and the behind the scenes on this one is super cool because I have a little fog machine that I used in the background, but also at their feet. And yeah, it was just amazing how it came together. I love it. Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny to me because you see these figures and they really are like posed, but then you bring a whole different story
and I think
to life.
That's the fun thing about minifigures. Like I said, it's like they're posed for you already. So half the work is done. You still have to figure out the angle that you want to use for each figure, even though they're posed. And then you have to come up with the scenario or the story that they're in. Yeah. So that's a lot of fun.
And those were both the King Comics minifigures, but we also had the Sunday Morning that you did a couple of shots on.
Yeah, love them. I grew up like watching Popeye on TV. I remember reading the Sunday comics with Hagar every Sunday.
Yeah.
And Hagar and Eddie. So, but this was again water, so it's in my backyard on my patio, and similar to how I did the other shot of Popeye with the boat, I'm still just splashing water, and capturing the right moment. I love that because the song that I did this with, it was an Instagram reel, and the song was like the ultimate superhero, like heroic song, which I thought was hilarious.
It's pretty great. And then of course the Beetle Bailey one as well. This one is great.
And that's the other thing. Okay, so if you see these out of the box, Beetle is actually supposed to be running. So, but if you can start to look at them before you just go with the obvious. And for me, the iconic moment or my memory was Sergeant always kicking him like that and go flying up in the air because he's being lazy or whatever, right? And so I really love that pose. So I noticed when I picked him up and turned him upside down, it could look like he was being kicked, you know? So.
And how did you get the dirt to spray up like that?
Right. So I think this was like a phony type of grass. And then I added bits of like dried moss that you can get at the hobby shop and dirt from my yard. And then I just blast it with compressed air.
Oh, that's so neat.
And it turned out like the effect is good. It's true to what I remember as far as what the comic strip was. Yeah.
This one is, I always love this image so much. And then of course the Salmon Max.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the latest wave with the octopus and stuff, which gives you so many fun things.
Yeah, the octopus is so cool. And just to have him in that scuba outfit is really fun. So obviously it was going to be a water scene for me.
Yeah. Because you wanted to add the octopus in.
Of course. I mean, and he's a scuba diver, so he has to be around water.
Fair.
Yeah. So fun image, fun to make. Again, with the water splashing, it's very similar to what I did before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, the Lucha Libre. I love this shot where they're just like destroying the city almost.
They're giants. They're giants in the city, and they are destroying it. It's interesting how sometimes I learn things when I'm doing like working on projects. And one of the things I learned from this is that, so behind the building that's laying down, you see what looks like flames coming up and smoke, but really it was just, I put those same tube lights with the red gel on it, shining in different directions. And I knew I was going to get orange glow, but somehow when it got closer, it made that flamey looking glow too, that yellowish one. So it turned out, that was a surprise. That it was fun.
Yeah. Oh, and we love you too. Let's see, what else? Oh, the Saurozoic Warriors.
Yes, that was, so a lot of my shots like prior to this year were mostly done outdoors. And more recently, I started doing a lot of indoor stuff. And this is actually in my studio, which is also my office. And it's just a little area where I have a table and I can put different backdrops. And these are all on foam boards, so I can easily stick in these trees that like they're regular branches, and I drill holes in the bottom that I either put wire on or I just carve them really sharp so they stick into the foam. And I built up the base, maybe with dirt, I can't remember. And then obviously I did, like I used my little smoke machine again too. So a lot of different lighting with smoke and a dark background is, I thought
gets you a lot.
I really wanted to do a group shot with these guys too. So
I mean, they are really fun, chunky toys to play with.
Yeah. Yes, these are great. Like I could see how kids would love these as well as adults. For sure, kids like just go crazy with them.
Yeah. And then we had the Mar Osa shot as well.
Right.
Where, I mean, how did you get the smoke just coming out of the end of his gun? Is that post effect?
I really I can get pretty detailed with the smoke machine.
Yeah.
So that's mostly that. Then you just remove, because I have a smoke machine, it's small, and I have a long rubber tube that comes out from it. So it's basically, that's how I got that.
Oh, that is so neat that you can get that detailed on it.
Yeah. And before I had a smoke machine, what I would do, and you could get a very similar effect, is I would just get a stick and I would light it on fire and blow it out and put the stick there with the smoke coming out. It's pretty much
and
the
then
same
remove
effect.
the stick after the fact. Yeah. Oh, that's so neat. Oh, the strawberry shortcake one.
Yeah, it was a fun image. I mean, it's funny because I forget who said, "Oh man, those strawberries look so delicious." I said, "Yeah, they're plastic."
Are they really?
Yeah, they're plastic.
I thought they were real too.
Yeah, they're plastic strawberries. Yeah, they're plastic strawberries. But yeah, I mean, again, this was done inside my studio, and when you do this enough, you really want to start thinking about the composition of like not always just putting your toy in the center of the picture and photographing it, but you can get a lot of times you can get a lot more flow and interest in the image by playing around with different how you place your items and how you place the elements of the two sections on top with the leaves. That's kind of I use that as kind of a framing device to kind of bring more attention. I mean, you can't not see strawberry obviously, but it really just kind of helps focus.
Absolutely. That is such a fun image. And you have Custard the cat kind of just out there on the strawberry, adding a little extra to the photo.
Yeah.
So fun.
Cool toys.
They are really cool. Did you get sick of the strawberry scent when you were working on these?
I have a really bad sense of smell, so it was okay.
Oh, and the Umbrella Academy image too. I forgot about this one. I love this one.
Yeah, this was. I mean, I love the Umbrella Academy, so I've seen the shows. I'm not sure. Is there going to be another season?
I think there's one more season. Yeah, coming out soon, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I used an extreme set. I forget which one exactly for the building here.
Extreme sets are so great to just kind of get a quick backdrop.
Yes, and each one actually offers a ton of different configurations that you. So it actually took a while to figure out which angle and which part of the building I wanted to use. But the characters are amazing. The likenesses are wonderful.
Yeah, that Cha-Cha alternate head is
fun.
It's just so fun.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, and the Kawiki's escape here with the epic skeletons and Kawiki running away.
Yeah, so interesting that I grew up in Daly City, which is just outside of San Francisco. I live in LA now, completely different climates and environments. So this is at my dad's house. He still lives just outside of San Francisco. It's where I grew up. And the backyard is very lush, unlike our yard. Has a lot of different plants and real moss. I have to go and buy moss if I want moss. And so sometimes I'll go up there, I'll bring some toys because I know I can get some different looking shots. And yeah, this was last year, and this was a quick setup on the side yard. There was an old dead kind of tree trunk, which is right below Kawiki, with some moss on it. And yeah, that's how I came up with the images. Like, I just thought it'd be cool to have these warriors there and almost like not necessarily hunting Kawiki, but surprised by Kawiki leaping by. Yeah.
And, you know, the 6-inch skeletons, clearly bringing your love of skeletons across into different things.
These are absolutely a different level than the smaller ones for sure, because you've got the characters and the costuming and the armor. And it's pretty cool. And Kawiki and your Mighty Steeds line, the articulation on the horses and Kawiki is like, you can do some really fun storytelling with those.
We haven't had you take a photo with Frankie the Unicorn yet, have we?
No, I don't. Do I have Frankie the Unicorn?
We might have to get you a Frankie the Unicorn.
I'm not sure that I do have it. That's why you haven't seen it.
But Kawiki is also really fun.
Yeah, Kawiki's made it into a couple of my shots now.
Yeah. And then the Phantom and Steed.
Yeah, this was before I was shooting. Well, one of the first places. Okay, so when I first started photographing toys, I used to go to a park called Vasquez Rocks, and it's they've shot an early Star Trek episode there. They've shot Galaxy Quest, a lot of scenes from Galaxy Quest, and it looks otherworldly because the rock shapes. It's almost like Tatooine from Star Wars. It looks like you're on another planet. And I used to go there all the time when I first started shooting toys. And then somehow I went to my porch and I realized that I could pull off a lot of the same shots on my porch. And what's amazing is the shot included is my porch has a railing that's probably like 4 to 5 inches wide.
Yeah.
And then I use that railing because it's about this, it's chest high. And then I put a board on it and I balance it with weights on each side so it doesn't fall off the little railing. And I put dirt and foam or whatever I need. In this case, it was 2 big rocks. And Phantom was definitely on a wire there. And I was standing back, and I always have buckets of dirt wherever I'm shooting. Like on the porch, I keep it a bucket of dirt. In the backyard, I keep a bucket of dirt. And I call it, like, I live in Valencia, so I call it Valencia magic dirt because it's dry and it's dusty. And when you throw it or blow it, not only dirt flies, but you have a smoky texture to it, which is really cool.
Really neat.
So when I did a shoot at Toy Fair in 2020, I had them ship in a box of my dirt just so I could use it. Yeah.
So, I mean, magic dirt is the key to everything then.
Yeah. I have to have my dirt.
Yes. And we agree. These are beautiful photos. Oh my goodness. So those were kind of some of the ones I grabbed.
Yeah.
If you go to Mitchel Wu's Instagram, you can see all of the rest of them.
Yeah, they go all the way back to my very first image. That's a long scroll, though.
It is. I mean, I've definitely scrolled all the way through.
Oh, yeah.
It's really fun.
Yeah, and you can see kind of a progression. But I used to shoot photos professionally before I took up toy photography. So I had a lot of the gear already. I knew a lot of the basics. So it's not like some of the toy photographers progression that you see who started photography just to photograph toys. And it's amazing because anytime I go onto Instagram and I see, and I know a lot of the people that are shooting toys, my jaw drops just because of the amazing amount of talent that's shooting, like photographing toys right now. It's really incredible. And it's fun to see. And it's a very open community. People share, like I share all the behind the scenes. I think that's really helped speed up the progression of what you see on Instagram now. It's pretty crazy.
It is. It's insane. And I mean, we get tagged a lot and we just love seeing people play with the toys because that's what you should do.
It's definitely a form of play for sure. Like if I were to go to the park and I had a strawberry shortcake and I just started playing in the sandbox, I think people would call the cops on me.
Yeah, I mean, let's see.
But if I'm shooting them, it's okay.
John just said he used to live in a place that had one shrub in the front of the yard, which if you laid on your stomach underneath, it looked like a 7-foot scale tree.
Perfect.
Which is perfect for the predator photos.
Yes, perfect.
And he only got the cops called on him for creepy behavior once.
See? But you had a camera in your hand, so it should have been okay.
I mean, he clarified in saying that it was in the middle of the night with a camera and a flashlight.
Okay, maybe I understand it then.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's hilarious.
So, I mean, I think as we've kind of talked through all these images, right?
Yeah.
The theme is you get really creative and you use the things around you to make it work.
Yeah, the beauty of toy photography is you could do so much with so little. Like working on my porch on that little railing, I could create so many different worlds and universes just on that 5 or 6 inch rail of porch. When I used to shoot weddings, we'd always have the portrait session, and it would be a challenge to find like an area that was just beautiful and unobstructed with garbage or people. With toy photography, you could find like a little corner of your house, or you could find a little corner of the yard, or like that one shrub that he found in the front of his apartment building. And that can become a huge world for your toys. So that's what's really amazing about toys, is that first you're limited to your own imagination, but it's so easy to create different worlds with toy photography just because they're so small. Yeah.
And I know I've seen a lot of questions about kind of like lighting. So what's your number one lighting tip?
So when I first started, I would use a lot of natural light. So I'd go out into the yard and I'd find a place that had some nice, not direct sunlight, but more of a diffuse sunlight, which means shade basically. And that's what I would do. Like I started by doing that. When I went to that park I was talking about, I had no lights. I would just go there, bring my toys and my camera, and I would shoot. And if you went back to look at some of my older images, I think they hold up really well. So it's like you can get carried away as much as you want with lights. Like I love working with different lights now and doing the color stuff. But you don't have to be overwhelmed by it. You could start really simply, and you don't have to go out and buy a ton of stuff first either, because it can get expensive. You can just go out and you could, like, I have that IKEA light, or you could use a flashlight, or you can buy a couple of cheap lights off of Amazon, LED lights. There's a lot of options, or you could just use natural light. Yeah.
And for those of us who don't have Valencia magic dirt at our disposal,
dirt will still be fine.
Regular dirt works too.
It may not be as smoky or dusty, but you know, it's probably not a whole lot different. It may be a little moister. Like I think you guys get a lot more rain here than we do. Whereas in Southern California, where it seems like we're always in drought, so it's definitely drier. Yeah. But I mean, dirt will still work. Yeah. Like I remember when I did the New York thing, they were saying, "Well, should we go to Home Depot and buy some dirt?" I said, "No, you better just use my dirt."
That's insane to me that you shipped a whole box of dirt.
Yeah. I was glad I did.
I love it. Did he shoot the photos on the book on Kickstarter? No, that is actually another toy photographer that we do some work with. That Kickstarter, I think it ends today for the Total Hacks book, but also really fun. And you work with, what is his name? The awesome stop motion dude? Oh, Mechanimation.
Yeah, Jacob.
Yes, he's fantastic.
Yeah, and I know he's working on upping his game too.
He is. Yeah. Every video is better than the last.
Yeah.
We just posted the Sorozoic video that he did, and I am blown away by that.
It's so good. That's a good story in that one. Yeah, because there's actually there's a voiceover on it. Right?
Yeah. We actually had Chris, who's our warehouse manager, did the voiceover.
Oh, that's
on
cool.
That.
Now that you say that, that makes sense.
Did that make the connection?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, let's see. John is saying that for small figures, an iPhone screen with the brightness turned up on lights works really well without washing them out.
That's cool.
Good tips and tricks.
And actually, for iPhones and other like Androids. I think there's apps that you can get that has different color lights.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, so you don't even have to have a light with a gel on it. You could just go to whatever app that is. I don't know what it is. I should download it. And you could just choose your color, then use that as your light source.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah.
What's your favorite kind of like, you know, ridiculous moment you've had as you're setting up a shoot and you realize you're missing something and you just found something that worked? What's your favorite, like, last minute sub in? Because there's always got to be something.
Looking at my wife, because I only remember the nightmares. I don't remember something that I've used to sub. Let me think. I can't think of anything.
No last minute stories.
No, probably because before I go into a shoot, I already have everything ready.
You already have everything planned out.
Yeah.
So how do you start that concept then? Because I think that's probably the biggest part of making these come alive, is that concept.
The first concept?
Yeah. Is it just playing with your toy and like enjoying playing with it?
Yeah, it can be many things. It can be like, I already know Popeye and the characters, so that's where the concept will come from. I'll think of iconic moments and think, oh yeah, that one would be a cool toy photo. So I'll do that. Or other ones, like I've done a Toy Story one where Buzz is flying over a coffee cup, splashing the coffee out onto Woody. And that just came from one morning spilling my coffee. So yeah, it can come from real life, or it can come from some weird moment in my imagination.
That's so fun.
For concepts, as you know, a lot of times working with clients, a lot of times they have to have approval. So what I'll do is, I used to draw them out because I have an illustration background. I thought I should use my drawing skills, but it actually ended up taking a lot longer than just having the toy and using my iPhone to shoot it and using some other background that I already created from long ago and just kind of spelling out the scenario through that. And it really leaves like very little to the imagination, which is great for some clients, right?
Yeah.
Because some of them aren't great at visualizing things. So the less you leave to their guesswork, the better.
Yeah.
So, and it's actually quick, and yeah, I like working that way, actually.
It is really great for us too. Awesome. So that was a lot of really fun tips and tricks.
You know, when I sign off, as soon as we say goodbye, I'm going to think of that one answer that I could answer for you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But then I'll have the story.
Okay.
It was really my curiosity we were going with.
I'm sure it happened numerous times, and I'm just drawing a blank.
Yeah. Cool. Well, clearly Mitchel is visiting us at Boss Fight, so there's a lot of fun things to come.
Yes.
More images.
Yes.
Lots of fun toys.
Yeah.
He might be getting some proto samples to do some fun photos with.
Yeah, I've been working with you guys for almost 2 years now, so I thought, you know what, I got to meet everybody. I got to go there and check it out. And, yeah.
Did we meet your expectations?
Yes, absolutely. You exceeded them. This is a cool office. Yeah, and of course, the cast of characters working here is just like exceeded my expectations as well. Yeah.
We're all friends and family, and
awesome
it's great.
team, amazing team.
It is the best.
I mean, it's a bunch of creatives, so what's not to love?
Until you get to the business side of the house.
What's not to love?
I'm sure they're all laughing in their offices right now.
This is great.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking some time to chat with our fans.
Having me, and thank you guys. I love what I do. If you haven't tried photographing toys, whether it's Boss Fight or anybody else's toys, you should definitely give it a try. You don't need a lot to do it, and you may just spark something inside of you that you didn't remember you had. For me, it was like forcing myself to revisit like the 10-year-old that lives, I think still lives in all of us, that we just kind of shut down because we grow up. Once you refine that 10-year-old in you, it makes things a lot funner.
All right, I'm going to ask one last question. Favorite toy ever? Does not have to be Boss Fight.
Favorite toy ever? When I was a kid, I think it was Mattel. I used to play with these toys. One was called, I remember one specifically. His name was Major Matson, and he was an astronaut. He came with a plastic helmet, but he was rubber or rubberized somehow. And instead of like joints, he had wire inside them. So he would bend to the wire. It was neat, but and I had several different characters, but because he was like my favorite, I used to play with him all the time. And eventually you bend a wire enough, it snaps, and all of a sudden the wires would be poking up and you grab them, draw blood all the time. Your brother may know what I'm talking about.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, they're still out there. I Googled them. It's like, oh, they're still out there. Yeah.
All right. And favorite Boss Fight toy?
Popeye. Yeah.
I should have expected that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a no-brainer just because, again, favorite cartoon, and you look at the images I create from them. They're like, sometimes I want to go an extra level with Popeye. Yeah.
They're fun toys.
Yeah, they're super fun. You nailed the characters. Andrew nailed the characters, and the articulation is amazing. And you're coming out with some cool characters. Not just not just the best known ones, but some of the secondary ones too, I think.
Yeah, there's some really neat stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge. I see everybody saying thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Lots of toy photographers in our midst, and I'm sure there'll be continued comments and questions.
Cool. Yeah. She at Mitchel Wu Photography. If you have any questions, just shoot me a DM. Happy to answer.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see some new boss fight photos soon.
Very soon.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you all for joining us.
Bye.